Hi team, welcome to the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. This week we're going to talk about the San Diego Cantina event and the updated news on Fallen Empires. We will also talk about the fun stuff going on in our guild, Alea Iacta Est. Our astromech today is EPC 99, who is starting a new endgame progression guild, but they will only be running hard mode False Emperor, of course, over and over, because that's the new content we have to look forward to. What is their guild name? It is, of course, Making Melgus Popsicles.
Oh, you crack me up, Max.
Making Melgus Popsicles. I sort of blew the punchline there, but there we go. With me, as always, is Seema. Hi, Seema. How's that conquest going?
Well, it's funny you should ask me about Conquest, because we were in Ops on Thursday night. At the end of the night, we did a story mode run of Explosive Conflict for me and one other person, I forget who still had like one of those vehicle quests on our log, and it doesn't complete when you do hard mode or nightmare mode. So at the end of that run of EC, I got my conquest target for the week.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I hadn't even been trying. And then we sat down and looked at it. We had picked Hoth as a target, and you know, we had done this operation and that operation and this group finder or whatever, and it was just like bloop.
Yep.
Out of nowhere. So yeah, I got an extra 25k credits and some decorations, you know, basically fell on my head.
Did you get any good decorations? They haven't updated that yet to have the rank 10
no,
gathering nodes.
They haven't. I wish they would make the new mats count, because I could make 1,000, you know, of anything with the new mats, because they're so readily available. But
yeah.
Anyway, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Which stronghold are you going to give up to get your Yavin 4 stronghold?
So that is coming up soon, isn't it? We'll talk about that this week.
Yeah.
But I think I am still set on exploding Coruscant. I'm going to just detonate a huge bunch of explosives right in the middle and blow it up. So that's what you just have to destroy it completely, right? That would be
I think
great.
I might do Coruscant too.
If when you deactivate it, there was like an animation of it, like, you know.
Like sliding into the next building or something.
That would be great. But yeah, I think I'm going to delete Coruscant, because Dromankos, even though I never go there, it's got the rain, which looks cool outside. And then I still use both Tatooine and Nar Shaddaa. And I have not heard that they're increasing the limit, even though they were going to look into it and try. So unless they surprise us, I'll probably deactivate Coruscant.
And for me too, Coruscant or Dromankos would be the easiest, so less effort because less decoration picking up.
Right.
Or maybe you don't even have to pick them up. You can just deactivate it. Come to think of it, I think.
Do you think they would all sort of get picked up for you automatically? Because you'd still want the decorations, because you're gonna know.
Yeah. No, I think I remember them saying in the beginning that if you deactivate one, it'll pick up all the decorations, and that makes sense that's how it would work.
Yeah. I guess it does make sense.
And I have faith and trust. I'll just, you know, go for it.
Yeah, I did. I did. What was the? There is an ability to pick up decorations like just in the area or just in the room that you're in, and that does not work as you would expect. What that does?
No, it gets stuff from the adjoining rooms sometimes too. So you could probably do it in just a few pickups too. But
yeah. Probably, because I picked up like half my stronghold once, and I was like, damn it.
I remember. It was not a happy time.
But there is more news this week, so why don't we talk about that?
All right.
Now, an Imperial News Network report.
The Nightlife event is still in progress. I have not been back. I have not been back, but
have you been gambling?
No, I have not. I have to wait till there's like 2 days left, and they go, oh, we're taking it away, and I go, oh, I forgot, and then I'll go, and I'll spend 1 million credits and get nothing. I've got it all planned out.
Well, also the PTS is down now, so they shut down the PTS, the 3.3 PTS, in preparation for launching 3.3 in live, and that still, as far as we know, is scheduled for next week on the 21st. So in that patch, there's going to be healing updates, that we've talked about before, the PvP gear and commendation updates. Yes, the Yavin 4 stronghold,
Yep.
we think, we're assuming. Um, yeah, a bunch of stuff like that. I can't think of anything else from that patch that's super important.
Yeah, no, the
Um,
PvP updates are somewhat extensive in the way they're handling comms and the way ranked will work and
yeah,
the gear thresholds for ranked and things like that. But not that huge. I am looking forward to the Evan Stronghold. I was just
and
hearing
the
about
the
that this week.
healing updates are going to have some, they will have some impact on how you play, I think. But yeah, I'm fully planning to just, log in and learn how they work and adjust.
Yep. Also, this week, there are quite a few posts in all of the class forums where the devs are requesting feedback on how you would like to construct or what your ideas are on future set bonuses. They put some parameters out there. They're trying to say, be realistic. We want to make sure that it doesn't ever affect your damage output by more than something around 5%. But if you've got new ideas or you've got some creative thinking going on around what you think should happen in terms of set bonuses, jump in those forums. They've got one for every class combination, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something creative for a set bonus set. But yeah,
Yeah,
let's see.
we need something big,
Oh,
flashy
there's an
animations. Uh,
yeah, I
That'd be
was trying
fun.
to think of something dumb like, it would pull out a pet or something. You had the six-piece bonus whenever you cast such and such, your head would explode.
Your head
All right.
explodes and it damages everyone around, all enemies around you, and then it grows back.
Luckily, the success of SWTOR does not depend on my creativity. In fact, speaking of creativity, there's a new short story published on the blog, the SWTOR.com blog, which I have not read, but just letting you know it's out there if you want to go read it.
That was an excellent segue, Seema. That segue makes me want to go kill another player. Speaking of
Oh,
PvP, now see that was a terrible segue.
I see we both went to Segway University.
Speaking of PvP, we already announced that Season 5 would be ending relatively soon. The weapon picks on what the weapon rewards for Season 5 PvP rewards, they're now available on the dev blog also. They look okay. They're not on fire. I don't think any of them are going to live up to the ones that were on fire in my mind. But not terrible. They got little sparky effects and they're nice and flashy colors and respond to their color crystals, it looks like. So it's almost like a weird bowcaster rifle thing, but not a bowcaster. The little flanges flip out. I like the fiery ones. I think those are the best. In guild news, we still have our ops teams running. The sup ops team that runs on the Imperial side on Wednesday nights is still progressing along. Could probably still use either a tank or a healer as a full-time member, but they pull in people all the time. So check in with Arvashet in our guild forums if you are interested. Our Soldiers of Light Republic Ops team still runs on Monday nights and could still probably use a new member on that team as well. So check the forums and talk to one of our Canadian officers, Sten, who can help you out there. And they have a note for me and everyone this week that says, yes, Underlurker can still be quite a jerk.
Yes, he can
And they
be.
have suggestions for what Underlurker can do with his spare time, and we won't we won't repeat those. The Lords of Light Imperial Ops team is continuing to stream on Thursday and Sunday nights, and we are doing interesting, fun, weird things to fill up our time because we sort of got a little tired of story mode Ravagers. So we touch on the
Or
hard
any
modes a little
any
bit.
mode Ravagers, really.
Yeah. We still touch on the hard modes a little bit. We did when we have our full team, we're going through nightmare mode progression on Dread Fortress because we want to all get the Wings of Brontes. But because we didn't have the full team this week, we did hard mode Dread Fortress, and that was pretty fun just to sweep on through there and get all the way through to the end. And since we hadn't gotten to Brontes on hard mode in our nightmare progression, it was good to see those mechanics, because it'll still be slightly different for Nightmare, but we had never seen even the hard mode mechanics, so we had to sort of learn that fight. So we wiped on it a couple times until we learned where we had to stand and what we had to do, and then all the new.
And who had balls?
Yeah, what you do with the balls, with your finger, you have to slap the balls with your hand. That was what the tanks needed to do. Just to be clear about the mechanics. How about mandatory fun night, Seema?
Yeah, what about we have a note on here that we're going to do Nightmare Karagas Palace this week. Is that from last week, though? Because we did do Nightmare Karagas Palace last week.
Yes, that is not what we're going to do this week.
We are going to do something that will be fun, and I don't know what it is.
Imperial Explosive Conflict Nightmare, and try to get more tank mounts before that gets hard again.
Yeah, try to get tank mounts, right.
Yeah.
Yes, we're on a collision course with October 27th in terms of getting those tank mounts for everyone.
Yes, and all of those fun things and all of the different Nightmare and hard modes. Things like the Wings of Brontes. That's why we're interested in progressing through there at this point, because those are all going to get more difficult again, and we'll talk about that a little bit in our segment. And shout out to the chat room. Thanks everybody. We've got a pretty sizable crew in there again tonight. Hi everyone. Grats to ShadowCon, who was our winner last week. I still need another PM from ShadowCon, if you hear this, on what faction your character's on, so I can get you that cartel pack. And we'll do another giveaway after the show. But thanks a lot, guys. It's really fun having you in the chat room. Let's see.
Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
That was a little bit of a cop-out on the drop-in. I forgot to figure out something new. But we did get Bothans apparently dying in San Diego this week, because we got a bunch of information coming out of there that we'll talk about, and a bunch of other dev posts that came up this week about Fallen Empires. So I've entitled the podcast this week Habeas Corpus, which means you shall be given the corpse, or you shall be given the body, basically. Which is, of course, a reference. So I was thinking, this isn't really a spoiler, because there's nothing really that's getting spoiled, because they said it's not really a thing. So
right.
So I'm gonna spoil it. The thing that was cut out of the trailer that they showed on the side, and there's actually artwork that you can get that came on the thumb drives from the Canteen event, was a shot of a Malgus frozen in carbonite that the two brothers from the Fallen Empires trailer, in theory, were going to be bringing to his father to sort of show them as a trophy of their conquests. They took a step back from that even when they showed it and said, hey, we cut this out of the trailer. This isn't something that we're doing. My conclusion, it wasn't completely worded this way, but what I heard, not everybody heard the same thing, but what I heard was, Malgus will certainly not be coming back in Fallen Empire, so don't expect that. But they could bring him back sometime. And the idea of Malgus floating around out there frozen in carbonite, or him still being alive in some capacity, is still a pretty fun idea to think about. So what are your thoughts on that, Seema? Is Malgus going to be in Fallen Empires, or is he just a popsicle?
I think what he said on the trailer, but we're not saying that we didn't put him in the Fallen Empire, so
So you're saying there's a chance?
Maybe. I'm saying maybe.
Yeah, I don't think so. The way they said it and the way I heard it was he won't be there. But you never know. You never know. And it's just another one of those things that now they've reserved the right to resurrect Malgus, it sounds like. So that's fun.
But what you said about it too was interesting, that Malgus in Carbonite was not necessarily a living Malgus that's going to come back and be a character, but just one of the trophies, like the lightsaber handles.
So that was my interpretation, was in sort of one of the takes, basically, that Blur was putting together. They needed these two guys they needed the two brothers to be bringing back some trophy of their conquest to show to their father, so he could look on them disapprovingly and they could, rage quit.
Right.
So what more interesting trophy of conquest than, like, the corpse of Malgus as an example that would be a pretty interesting trophy of your conquest. However, I think they decided to cut that out because it would be too much rampant speculation about, now is Malgus in the story? Does Malgus have a part? Malgus, and it wasn't really about Malgus.
So then they decided at the Cantina event to just show it so they could get everybody all upset.
So they could troll us and rile everyone up.
And get that reaction, that reaction that they got.
We knew this would have caused commotion if we left in the trailer, so we didn't. But we'll show it anyway.
Yeah, we'll show it now. But just to you guys, right? Don't put it on the internet or anything.
Yeah, don't put it on the interwebs. This is just this will be our secret. Right. But there was still a bunch of other news. So it started earlier in the week. There was a note that came from Jesse Sky about the sort of the concept behind where they're going with Fallen Empire. And it was basically, yo, we heard you like story, so we're putting some more story in your story content. And the concept is, which I think is interesting and sort of started a lot of the speculation that then they clarified later in the week. Story is really going to be the focus, especially at the launch of Fallen Empires in October. And what BioWare feels is their strength. And if you're really strong on something, why wouldn't you double down on that strength? And if that's made you really successful in the past and people have really been fans of how strong you are around something, why wouldn't you, promote, do the things you're good at? That sounds reasonable. That sounds like a good approach to me in a number of ways. But it did then generate a bunch of the speculation that ensued from there about, well, what about all the other non-story parts of an MMO in general and about SWTOR specifically? And that discussion was big on Reddit and lots of other places. What's your initial, I guess, go back in time to 5 days ago, Seema.
Well, when that post first came out, the Flashpoint and Ops update post, to me, I felt like it was what I was already expecting. And we even talked about this a couple weeks ago on the show, just that it seemed like what BioWare was doing, and maybe this is what they need to do, and I actually think it's a rather bold move, is to say, okay, this stuff over here, Flashpoints and Ops, isn't really our strong suit. And for us to spend time on it takes more time than someone who's doing it and it is their strong suit. But over here, we have all these fantastic writers, and we can craft stories that are compelling and that people find entertaining. But we're not spending the time on them because we're spending time on this other stuff that we're not as good at. So let's put it back on the story. So my initial reaction was, oh no, I don't think I can do Ravagers and Temple of Sacrifice for another whatever amount of time. But you know what? I'm thinking that if BioWare can be successful at this, they're sort of turning their content model on its head. They're saying sub for the story, whereas right now it's kind of sub for PvP and Ops and Flashpoints, because if you don't sub for those things, you have to pay for them, separately through the cartel market. But they're saying, wait a minute, that's upside down for us. We're gonna charge for the story. That's where we're gonna spend our time.
Right.
And then I do have a feeling that if they do the work to bring all the Flashpoints and Ops up to level 65, that they standardize how they do gear across instances in some way that makes sense to them, that maybe in the future it might be easier for them to roll out new instances. I don't know. I think it's still possible that they may never roll out new instances.
And I certainly think they will, and we'll talk about the further clarification on some of their notes on that. But, and like that came out of the Q&A, they certainly said, yeah, we're going to eventually. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think that they are good at story. They feel like they're good at story, and it even goes further than just story. It's story with choices that matter and things that happen with your companions. There's been a lot of, there was crazy stuff that happened in Mass Effect which is wildly popular and interesting to people. They're looking to sort of bring some of those ideas into the story as well.
But I think when people say things like, well, the story, I mean, I won't sub for the story because I'll log in once a month, play, for 10 hours or whatever it is, 4 hours, who knows how long it's going to take. Then I won't have anything to do for the rest of the month. I won't pay for that. And I'm saying, yeah, you probably won't because you're a raider.
Right.
But there's this whole other audience over here, and I think that's what they're after.
Yeah. I think it potentially is. It'll be interesting to see. So I think we talked about it. We, used the metaphor of sacrifice, the idea, the sort of the theme behind at least the Fallen Empire trailer was sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice? You can achieve anything you want if you're willing to sacrifice. Is BioWare, did they come to the conclusion that they're willing to sacrifice some of their current player base, sort of the traditional MMO PvPers and ops team and raiders, to do this new thing and potentially gain a much greater market, doing things that they're really good at and they're really successful at with other games? So when this news first came out, and we talked about it a little bit last week, then it came out with more clarity, and then even more QA happened later. But when it first came out, I thought, personally, oh geez, I don't know. I am an ops type person or a raider. I do like PvP, and if they're not focusing on that enough, I'm a little frustrated on that. But boy, that's interesting, and maybe they're going to do this interesting new thing, so I'll reserve judgment. And I also expected and initially saw a lot of similar sentiment from the community. A lot of other people saying, "Well, forget it. That's it. I just canceled my sub. Blah blah blah. That's all us raiders are quitting. All us PvPers are quitting." But then I started looking deeper into the broader discussion about it, into deep into the Reddit threads and across a lot of the people that I used to play Star Wars with, and I found a lot of people, a lot more than I expected, saying, wow, this sounds awesome. That would make me come back. If that happens, if they do this with the story, that would make me come back. That would make me sub. I just re-upped my subscription because I like the sound of that. And that surprised me how much of that was coming into the discussion.
I found that as a surprise too.
Yeah.
Because I spend, a lot of my game time in ops. The people I talk to are people who spend their time doing ops, and I kind of had a little bit of tunnel vision there, thinking that was, I always knew that the hardcore / nightmare players were a small percentage, but I'm thinking now that maybe raiders in general in SWTOR are a small percentage, and just because I do it, I think it's what everyone does, but there's a huge number of people out there that are playing other aspects of the game a lot.
Yeah, story aspects, even making their own stories. Maybe we'll talk about that at some point. We're starting to do a little research into the RP community. And there's a ton of that going on. People making their own stories and playing the stories, and it's all about story for them. And maybe just the raiders and the PvPers, the hardcore ops teams and the hardcore PvPers are the vocal minority, and maybe BioWare knows what they're doing. Maybe. Or maybe not.
They say they have metrics.
They do.
Yeah, that does remain to be seen. But another thing, and this is something that Makia had come up with this week, is like, if they're successful at doing something so story focused and saying over here, flashpoints, operations, and PvP to the side for this long of a time, and they're successful at it, going after a different type of customer or player, then maybe that will give other gaming companies the courage to make the changes in their MMOs that they wanted to, but they've been afraid to because there's this MMO model that they think players are expecting.
That's a really interesting concept. If what are you willing to sacrifice? There's a concept in business. It's sort of like innovator's dilemma. If you've gotten big doing some core old thing, sort of like the MMOs made you successful, the old MMO model, like WoW. Could WoW ever step away from doing operations inside of World of Warcraft and they've got PvP and not operations, what do they call raids. You can't you can't kill your core of what you thought it was without a lot of risk in order to go and do something new. But yeah, if BioWare's successful in doing it, then yeah, maybe they could. Maybe everybody's going to get, maybe there won't be any operations group raid content in the future. Maybe that won't be how.
I mean,
MMOs
it's
work
made
ever again.
it's made me ask myself the question, what is an MMO? Because up until this week, I would have said, well, it's an RPG, but it's online with massive number of people and blah, 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 blah. But in my deeper mind, I would have really thought that having in-game content is what makes an MMO. And what they're saying is, no, we're going to keep this story content coming, and that's what, and they call it the MMO bits at EA, but you are going to be customizing your character. It is a persistent world. You will be able to see other people, even though that you're questing solo. But when you get that new mount, there'll be people to show it off too. There is the GTN where you can buy and sell stuff from other people. All those things. Maybe all those things make it an MMO. It doesn't have to necessarily have, 7 tiers of rating and 20 available operations for it to be an MMO.
Maybe not. So later in the week, there was another dev post that gave a little more clarity to what do they mean by we're focusing on story. And then things even became more clear. And they did start going explicitly into... In addition, the flip side of it being focused on story is it certainly will not be focused on new operations. And in fact, it was sort of like the punchline of the post, but they say explicitly, no new operations for Fallen Empires. And I don't know if they mean by that in any of the range of Fallen Empires, and it sounds like they will be spending time building operations after Fallen Empires launches, but certainly not in October and not for the launch of Fallen Empires. So what are they doing instead? They are doing some interesting things. They do want people to be able to play the variety of group content that's already in the game that people don't play right now but would. And we find this a lot of times as well. This happens all the time with our mandatory fun nights. We decide to go back and do some content that we're over leveled for just for fun, and people are really interested in, and we find every time we do it, for as long as we've been doing it, that people have never done, I've never done Eternity Vault. What? You've never done Eternity Vault? Well, apparently a lot of people haven't, and so what they're going to do is they're going to make all the old content new again in some ways. There won't be any new operations, but all old operations are getting some updates. They'll all be going up to level 65, but there will be a bolster mechanic. So between level 50 and level 65, you can group with anyone in that range and create a group out of it, and you'll get bolstered, and you can all go after it. They'll still have all the hard mode, story mode, hard mode, nightmare mode operations. There's only going to be one new tier of gear, and that's the only tier that's going to drop in any of them, so it's not going to be like there's nightmare gear and regular gear. But they're still going to have all the toys and titles and stuff for doing nightmare modes, so you can still sort of progress through that stuff. You can get the level 65 nightmare Eternity Vault or whatever. And they're going to up and change up and have more variety in a daily group finder for story mode operations and a weekly group finder for hard mode operations, and more rewards around that kind of stuff. And then on the Flashpoint side, Flashpoints, most of the Flashpoints are going to be able to be done solo mode, like you can do with the Fallen Empire, with the Revan,
the Shadow of Revan, like
Revan.
Battle of Rishi and Blood Hunt and Legacy of Rakata, Manan, all the ones that have solo versions now.
Forged Alliances, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, those were the earliest ones, yeah.
So it sounds like you'll get the magic robot to be able to come with you, so you could do a solo story mode of any of those, especially as you're leveling. You might want to sort of do it along the way. You'll be able to they're going to make a whole bunch of those, or if not most of them, tactical flashpoints as well, so you can do them with any mix of group of 4 people. They're going to make most of the flashpoints up a hard mode 65 of most of the flashpoints as well, and again, it'll be that bolstered bolstered model where between level 50 and level 65 be able to put a group together and go do those flashpoints. And then they're doing.
And on the flashpoints, though, the solo mode flashpoints, they specifically say that your character will be leveled down to the flashpoint.
Yeah, that's right. So.
And to me, it sounds like they're doing a lot of back end work on just how they produce instanced content, and I'm hoping that that's going to give them this fantastic platform that it's going to just be easier to roll out this kind of content in the future.
And their messaging behind all of that was, what we'd like to do is make it such that all of the group content that's already in the game is relevant at all times. And it's not like, if they put 2 new operations in, in the old model, if they put 2 new operations in when Fallen Empires came out, well, they'd be the next tier above, and then no one would 90% of people wouldn't bother doing any of the old operations anymore, and they'd all become irrelevant unless you wanted to just go do them for fun. So I actually don't. I like that model. I still want a new operation. I'll be clear about that.
Right.
But I always like that model, and I've said this about MMOs for years. If I get bored doing XYZ thing, if I don't want to, go do, whatever the top tier 1 or 2 main raids or operations or whatever your group thing is, but I want to go do some other thing, well, let my gear drop in that other thing and make that other thing just as much of a challenge. Why make all of that interesting content that you've built over the years irrelevant? So that's an interesting model. There was a note in there which I didn't understand, and I don't know if you understand it, Seema. It was the flashpoints will reward your own individual loot specific to your class. And I think that was, and it's also pre-operations loot to get you ready to run operations, basically. I don't know what that means.
I don't know either. I mean, they've always said that when you do flashpoints, and for instance, and I think operations too, that the loot that drops is supposed to be reflective of who's there. Like, you're not supposed to get cunning drops if you don't have any cunning users. So maybe it could be just as simple as that. Right,
it could be. It could be. So that, I mean, we still need detail around that, what that exactly means. But if it's,
except for, maybe they're making it so that it works, correctly.
Right. So there's that, and then they sort of made a similar comment when they talked about operations dropping relevant gear for your character. So that they could be doing something something slightly more than that, or it could just be the better mix of gear for whoever happens to be in the flashpoint or operation. So then,
I just want to say that Matt Griffender was saying it's interesting that the only operation that isn't getting a level 65 version is Colossal Monolith, and I wonder if that was just an oversight, or because it isn't on the list, but Taboros Courtyard is.
And I think one of the only flashpoints that isn't getting an update, even Red Reaper is getting an update, which I've still, I think, never run.
I don't think I've run Red Reaper either, at least not on most of my characters.
But I think Colloquoid War Games is not getting an update, because a lot of weird stuff happens in that, which is actually pretty cool. But I think a couple people noticed that wasn't on the lists.
And then Evil Dark Archon says, sounds like the personal loot system from WoW. I mean, if it were like that, that would be awesome, because that would really mean that everyone gets their own loot. Like that. I like that, but I somehow I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But we'll see. At this point, it's like wait and see.
Yeah. So then, to cap off the week, there was a Cantina event in San Diego at the con that was out there. A few interesting things happened, including them showing off the Malgus Popsicle. They gave out a new speeder mount code, so if you don't have one of those, certainly check Reddit or the forums or our forums all over the place. You can get a different color of that Cantina mount that they've been giving out lately, but it is a new color, it's a new skin on it. It's still that weird shape, but like looks like the side of a cruise ship, is what it looks like to me. But you
I
can
like it. I don't know why.
but you can get the new coloring on it. They did a thing which I thought was pretty nice of them. If you came to the con and you stopped by their booth and you were a subscriber, you had to be a subscriber, then they were giving out 30-day subscription cards to you and some extra cartel coins. So that was pretty sweet. That's pretty neat.
That's pretty neat.
Then they did the story panels where they showed off the Malgus Popsicle parts of the trailer, and there's screenshots of the Malgus Popsicle Carbonite thing in the Cantina content that they were giving away on the thumb drives. And they talked about it a little bit, but there was also some Q&A that came out of that. And the Q&A wasn't all that interesting, but it was some specific Q&A that people took notes on. So we can sort of run through that and sort of see what they say. I didn't see anything too interesting in there right off, but I don't know if you did, Seema. What was the most interesting to you? I guess we could sort of touch on any of these, but a lot of it was like,
well,
no plans,
the first
no
one, any
plans.
plan for new ops? We've sort of already beaten that one to death, but any new PvP content, look for change to PvP meta. I wonder what they mean by the PvP meta.
Well, what that means is changing enough of the abilities of characters as they relate to PvP to change how characters interact with each other and which characters are sort of like the flavor of the moment and the spec of the moment. I don't think that's going to satisfy PvP players all that much. That's not what PvP players are looking for, just an updated meta. But it is a change. So they're making these small changes to PvP. They just haven't added any extra maps. I think if they made these small changes, they tried to tune up the meta so there was more balance, and they added an extra map or two, I think PvPers would be pretty happy, actually. Or wouldn't have anything to complain about, at least. But, yeah, that's all that means.
They say they're going to revamp Conquest to match the current content.
Right. So there'll be new planets that are coming as part of Fallen Empires, so there'll probably be an opportunity to conquer those planets. I don't know how much more.
I don't know if this is worth doing, but you know those little spheres that you get for conquests hitting your targets, so that inside they have the datacrons, the crafting, not datacrons, but the crafting decorations.
Yeah.
When I get them now, I just put them in my bank because I have this fantasy that when they do update,
oh yeah,
and I open them after they update, then I have a chance of getting the newer ones. But
that would be interesting.
I doubt that will work, but hey, I'm still doing it.
They asked if any of the old planets will be getting updated as part of Fallen Empires, and that was at least semi-interesting. I don't think they're going to be updated at all, but the response was some of them will be revisited in Fallen Empire. I keep saying Fallen Empires. It's not. There's only one empire. Fallen Empire.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think what that means is, as part of the story, you'll have to, like, you know, go to Blood Sands and kill the new dude that's standing over on the side type of thing. And there's a piece of the story, like when you do those side companion quests and your companion tells you you've got to go meet up with the contact on Tatooine or whatever.
Right.
Any plans for a novel to expand the current story? They said no plans, unfortunately. I think that would be interesting to have another SWTOR novel. There's going to be so much SWTOR or Star Wars focus in canon content this year, though, that maybe it's better for them to wait and not be buried underneath that. There's already new Star Wars novels, canon novels, that are in progress and being released, and there's obviously the movies and the comics and the
Right.
you know, the cartoon series, so the animated series, so that's fine. Someone asked, are you going to be able to go back and play original story content with your new level 60? And the short answer was no. It wouldn't really make sense for you to go back and do your story content after your level 60. I think their concept will be you'll be a fully story relevant level 60 when you get that new level 60 character.
I'm interested that someone asked if the Shroud will be back, which is the macro binocular dude, which that would be cool. I enjoyed that little quest line, and they said yes. Of course, no word about when, but the Shroud is always there.
Right. They said guaranteed to be back, but can't guarantee when. So I don't think in the near term, I don't think that's necessarily planned as part of Fallen Empire.
I just think it means it's a twinkle in their eye because they like them too.
I think that's a great idea. That's got to come back, and more of those mini instances like the Shroud quest line.
Yeah.
Where you'd go in and you had to figure out the puzzle and figure out how to get through it, not trip the lasers and not get yourself killed.
But I don't want to kill any more Ortolans.
He was bad though. He was really bad. So.
He was.
And then finally, another disappointing answer. Any plans to upgrade GSF? They have every intention of adding to GSF, but it depends on what they can do and when the game is. So never mind how something. So no.
It depends. Someday.
So they will upgrade it someday. They have every intention of doing it, but they're all about the story with Fallen Empires. I don't think any of these sites. There's no point in asking. You add another PvP map. You're gonna do another hot ball. You're gonna add to GSF. Just stop. Nope. Story. October 27th is about the Fallen Empire story content. That's it. But that's fine. That's their deal. That's their plan, and they're sticking to it. And we'll see how it goes. So after all of this news this week, Seema, sort of what's your summary feeling now on the future? Are you more excited, less excited?
I'm a little bit more upbeat about it, especially since our ops team, we sort of talked about it, and I think we're just gonna see what happens. We're gonna, between now and then, we're gonna finish up whatever achievements we can in the time allotted. And I think that's gonna be fun. So that's enough for me for now. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yep, I think I'm sort of in the same boat.
And I hope they're hugely successful at it.
Right. I'm reserving judgment. I sort of feel the freedom to have fun goofing off between now and October, and not taking anything too seriously. But in doing that has sort of refreshed my excitement about doing some of these other weird things. Like maybe I do want to go kill Dreadtooth 10 times and go try to fight the hateful entity or whatever. Maybe I do want to,
right?
Whatever. So that's fun. That's a bit of freedom. So
Nightmare Penguin.
Nightmare. Clear out those Aerotech missions out of all my alt logs. That would be quite an achievement. So yeah, I'm reserving judgment on Fallen Empires and giving them the benefit of the doubt. They do know what they're doing on that kind of content, and we'll see. We'll see what things feel like in January, because I think there's going to be plenty for November and December. I think it's going to be interesting for a little while there. So we'll see sort of like towards the end of December or January what things are feeling like, how that periodic content tends to work. But with that, our EPC 99 droid is ready to go off and make Malgus popsicles. So we will say thank you to the chat room, and thank you for all of you joining us either on newoverlords.com or on iTunes, or subscribing on YouTube, or following us live on Twitch. We'll stream again next Monday night for the podcast on twitch.tv/newoverlords, again around 10:30 p.m. Central. And please follow us on Twitter at MaxTheGray and at AIESEMA, or find us on Jedi Covenant and ask us for a guild invite. We would love to have you. And we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.